What's up, guys? So this video is sponsored by Clan HQ, which is a fully featured messaging app that specializes in building integrations for your favorite games. They've already got all the features you know and love, including stickers, GIFs, photos, albums, notes, reactions, extensive notification and badging settings, full admin controls, the ability to set up an alliance, assign leaders and officers, etc. But here's where it gets awesome. Because this app is designed to integrate with Marvel Strike Force, it will do a lot for you automatically, like create general, leader, and announcement chats when you make an alliance, including chats for each strike team. You'll always be able to view someone's in-game name. You can flag yourself as looking for alliance or auto-post recruiting chats if you're looking for members. You'll even be able to see things like someone's total collection power and strongest team power just by looking at their profile. So I'll put a link in the video description below for Clan HQ, so you guys can be one of the first to check them out. I don't want to watch your stupid video. Just tell me, what are the best tier 4 upgrades? Okay. Number 1, Groot passive. Number 2, Star-Lord passive. No, that's it. But what if I'm running the Minn-Erva, Thanos, Vision Guardian team? Well, in that case, number 1, Thanos passive. Number 2, Groot passive. Number 3, Star-Lord passive, and number 4, Vision basic. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Orange Essentials. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Guardians of the Galaxy. That was the most demanded one in the comments of the last video. We're also going to be taking a look at the Guardian-Nerva teams, or the BKT. And a lot of people are wondering why they're called the BKT. So this joke goes back to when the Kree got reworked. Everyone was going crazy, and it got asked 27 times every single day, what is the best Kree team? And ultimately, we just started telling people the best Kree team is Thanos or Drax, Star-Lord, Rocket, Vision or Groot, and Minn-Erva. And then people went, wait, but Minn-Erva's the only Kree. And we went, that's right, that's the best Kree team. And BKT was born. But anyway, we're going to take a look at those two teams and break down what the best tier 4s are, so let's get into it. Alright, so we're going to start off with Drax. So Drax's tier 4 upgrade on his basic adds 30% damage. What's there to say? Drax is not really there to do damage. It's only a 30% increase, which is just like the barely acceptable minimum for a tier 4 upgrade. It's already low, he has low base damage. I mean, he does get some counters, so he'll use it a little bit more, and Guardians can get called to assist more often than normal thanks to the Rocket special, but at the end of the day, it's pretty weak. I'm going to give this a 2 out of 4 stars. Alright, looking at Drax's special, the upgrade with tier 4 mats goes from 1 or 2 stacks of counter to guaranteed 2 stacks of counter. If you ever see that, that means by default it has a 50% chance. So you go from a 50% chance of 2 counter to guaranteed 2 counter. That's really weak. Yeah, there's really nothing else to it. Just, you know, half the time getting 1 extra counter stack is pretty much never going to decide the match. So I got to give that one 1 out of 4 stars. All right. Looking at Drax's ult, it adds 30% damage and 10% drain, and then it adds 30% damage and 10% drain to the adjacent targets as well. So, again, that's really pretty standard. Drax has low base damage. The extra drain's kind of nice, but the problem here is this is a turn 3 ability, and Drax is the slowest character in the game. So he rarely even gets to use this ability, and when he does, there's usually not many enemies left. It's very rare that there are enough for him to get good chains on it. So he doesn't get to capitalize on it very much, and again, at the end of the day, he's not there to do damage, so while that little bit of extra healing is nice, I gotta give that ability a 2 out of 4 stars. Finally, looking at Drax's passive, it adds 5% drain, and having just extra 5% drain across the board for a flat 20% drain, it's not terrible. Drax being able to heal himself is nice, and he does have a good amount of health, especially with the buffs from being on a Guardian team. However, it's just not that impactful at the end of the day. You're more worried about other people dying than Drax as it is, so I gotta give that one a 2 out of 4 stars. Alright, now we'll take a look at Mantis. So Mantis' basic with tier 4s adds 40% damage, and that's it. I mean, what is there to say? Mantis is not there to do a lot of damage. Adding 40% to Mantis' low base damage for an already low damage basic, it's just not a big deal. you definitely don't need it. I give that one a 2 out of 4 stars just because it's not a complete and total waste, but very much not recommended. Alright, looking at the Mantis special, it adds 250 health and healing to herself and adjacent allies, and then also 250 health and healing to all additional allies, and then it takes the regen that she gives from a 75% chance to apply to a 100% chance to apply. And that's the only saving grace of this upgrade. It's still not very good, but always getting that regen because Mantis has really high health. The guaranteed regen is a nice little boost, but the flat 250 health is pretty valueless, so I just barely am going to give this upgrade a 2 out of 4. Alright, looking at Mantis's ult, it increases the flat healing 500, and then the other effect is just for raids. So we'll touch on that in a sec, but outside of raid, just a flat 500 healing is awful. It will almost never save you from anything, so that's a 1 out of 4, plain and simple. Now, if you are planning on using Mantis a lot in raids, I actually rate this ability a little bit higher. You go from a 50% chance to transfer 2 negative effects to guaranteed transferring 2 negative effects to your primary target, and then also, instead of clearing 1 or 2 positive effects, you're guaranteed clearing 2 positive effects. That is much more useful in raid, so specifically if you're going to be using Mantis in raid, I'll give it a 3 out of 4 stars, but otherwise it's a 1 out of 4 steer clear, not worth. Alright, looking at Mantis' passive, the tier 4 upgrade goes from a 75% chance to gain charged on spawn to a 100% chance. So it's pretty good. You do want to be able to targeted stun, so having that guaranteed stun is a nice asset for the Guardian team, whether for short engages or even in raid engages, which tend to be longer, but you want to be able to get that stun as soon as you spawn in and stop a particularly troublesome turn 1, so it's definitely useful. The reason that it's not essential is because 3/4 of the time she'll do it anyway, and you don't even need to put the tier 4s in. So because of that, I'll give it 3 out of 4. Alright, now we'll look at Gamora. So looking at Gamora's basic, the tier 4 upgrade goes from a 40% chance to bonus attack up to 2 times to a 50% chance to bonus attack up to 2 times. So it's not great. When the bonus attacks do happen, they're good for several reasons. I mean, firstly, Gamora just does a ton of damage, and then of course bonus attacks are a way to get around evades, are a way to get around death proof, so multi-hits are always good. However, the extra 10% chance to bonus attacks isn't that much, and mathematically it comes out to roughly the same standard 40% increase that every other basic gets, so I gotta give that one a 2 out of 4. Alright, looking at the Gamora special, it goes from hitting the primary for 230% to hitting the primary for 270%, and it goes from hitting the adjacents for 180 to hitting the adjacents for 200%. So it's not a big damage boost, it's pretty standard. However, because this ability can get her a reset, it's worth it for it to do that little bit of extra damage, but because the likelihood that it'll actually produce those extra kills is so low, I gotta give this one a 2 out of 4. Alright, looking at Gamora's ult, the tier 4 upgrade adds 50% damage. So it's just a single target nuke, but 50% is definitely a good amount of damage, especially considering that Gamora has high base damage. And then this is an integral part of her combo. She has to get these resets, and she has to get this reset on this ability. So making this ability 50% stronger is definitely good. It's not essential, but without a doubt, it's a strong upgrade. So this one is a 3 out of 4. And finally, we'll look at Gamora's passive, and Gamora's passive adds 5% crit with tier 4s. It's just not much. I mean, if she does get the crit, it can make the difference on one of her abilities that gets a reset, but 1 out of 20 times getting that extra crit is just not often enough to be relevant, especially considering the length of most Guardian encounters. So for me, this one's a 1 out of 4. Alright, now we'll take a look at Groot. So Groot's basic, when you add tier 4s, adds 40% damage. Now again, that is a pretty standard upgrade. However, Groot in particular will actually do a fair amount of basic attacking, because oftentimes you don't want to use his ultimate, so if you're not able to use his special, you're going to use the basic. Not only that, but he's going to get called to assist on Rocket's special, and so the more damage you can do with that turn 1 burst, the better. So while it's not essential, it is a hefty amount of damage, and for that I'm giving this a 3 out of 4. Alright, Now we're looking at Groot's special. Groot's special goes from applying 1 death proof to 2 death proof, and that's just to himself. So, don't get me wrong, trading 1 turn for 1 turn with this upgrade is not terrible. However, if anyone on the Guardian team is going to die, you want it to be Groot. A lot of times I want Groot to die because it'll put my team in a better position. So giving Groot the extra death proof isn't that useful. If you are trying to keep him alive, it helps, but it's not that big of a deal. It's hard for them to kill Groot as it is unless you're constantly putting the taunt on him. So for this reason, I give it a 1 out of 4. Alright, now looking at Groot's ult, when you add tier 4s, it increases the flat healing by 2200 health. And that's it. So the thing about this is the 2200 health is not a lot. In most instances of the game, that's never going to save you from anything. It's such a scant amount of healing that it's not worth upgrading. This is a 1 out of 4. Looking at Groot's passive, the tier 4s make it go from a 50% chance to apply slow for 2 turns to a 100% chance to apply slow for 2 turns. This is big because Rocket is going to use his special and put a taunt on Groot pretty much immediately. So guaranteeing that everyone who hits him is getting 2 turns slow is really big. It allows the Guardians to really get a leg up all throughout that 2nd turn when everyone who's hit Groot, which is pretty much anyone slower than Rocket, which is most characters. And they're pretty light on control as a team. I think other than this, they've got Star-Lord, Blind, and Mantis stun. So being able to constantly keep slows on the enemies is a huge asset to this team. Hands down, this is the most important upgrade for me. I'm giving this a full 4 stars. Next, we'll look at Rocket. So Rocket's basic adds 20% damage and 5% crit chance, as well as 30% damage to all the adjacent targets that get hit with the splash, and of course an extra 5% crit chance to that as well. So it's not bad, but it's not great. It's a moderate amount of damage added because Rocket has really high base damage, but the actual percentage isn't that big. So it's not going to be often that this Rocket basic being upgraded will actually net you enough damage to kill someone that you wouldn't have normally been able to. So for that, I give it a 2 out of 4. Alright, looking at the Groot special, it adds 30% damage to the primary target and an extra 20% chance to get an assist from a random ally. So this is really, really big. Hands down, it's very strong. It's not essential to scoring a win because you can still get that assist without it. It's only another 20% chance to gain the assist, and it's only 30% flat damage added to the special. But because Rocket's base damage is so high, that's really, really strong, and getting that assist can absolutely be the difference between one-shotting someone or not on turn 1. So while I don't feel it's essential, it is easily one of the best values on this team once you've covered your essential tier 4 upgrades. So for me, this one is a strong 3-star. Alright, looking at Rocket's ult, the tier 4 upgrade adds 30% damage, and if Groot is an ally, it adds 40% damage. So again, those percentages aren't that high. They're really standard for an AoE. However, this is the big nuke for this team, and Rocket does have high base damage, so it's not an extraordinary amount of damage that's going to result in so many more kills that you aren't getting, but it is an excellent way to make this team's strength stronger. So for me, this is a clear 3-star. Finally, looking at Rocket's passive, it goes from a 40% chance to apply a random positive effect from 1 to 2 allies to guaranteed to random allies. However, it's still only a 40% chance to apply. And for those of you that don't know, it says a random positive effect, but it's coded to only ever be offense up. So basically, 40% of the time, he will give out either 1 or 2 offense ups. Now he's going to give out 2 guaranteed offense ups. It depends on who gets it. If Drax gets the offense up, it's not a big deal. If Mantis gets the offense up, it's not a big deal. You know, if Star-Lord gets the offense up, but he's going to use his special anyway, there are enough instances where it doesn't make a significant difference, and it's only 40% chance to apply. So it's not garbage, but it's not great. For me, this is a 2-star. Alright, rounding out the Guardians of the Galaxy, we're going to talk about Star-Lord. So, first we're going to look at Star-Lord's basic, which adds 50% damage to the primary and 50% damage to the adjacent targets that get chained to. So, this is pretty good. I mean, at the end of the day, Star-Lord has really good base damage, and 50% is an above average increase to a basic, but because of the way Star-Lord's energy generation works, he doesn't actually do that much basic attacking, and it's not going to end up making that big of a difference. It's not a bad upgrade, but it's about what I would want just for standard value for a tier 4, so for me, this is a 2-star. Alright, now we're looking at Star-Lord's special. So with the tier 4s, it adds a 50% chance to apply the blind to a third target. So, an extra blind is not a bad thing, but it's not always super useful. First off, half the time it's not going to do anything. And then the half the time that it does blind someone, it has to not be resisted, but assuming that it even applies, it has to hit someone worthwhile because it's not in your control who this third blind hits, so then you have to hope that they're not doing something that will ignore blind, like a Thanos ult. You have to hope that they're even going through with an attack. You know, if it's Luke Cage and he's just going to taunt anyway, it won't matter. So there are times when this ability will make a difference, but there are plenty of instances where it won't make a difference as well, or it'll save you, one basic attack from one person that wasn't going to do a lot of damage. So for me, this one is just a 2-star. Alright, now we're looking at the Star-Lord ult. The Star-Lord ult gains 70% damage, and that is pretty good. That's about as much as you can ask for in terms of a single target nuke. There are some others in the game that add a little bit more with tier 4s, but Star-Lord has really good base damage. At the end of the day, this is just a really strong upgrade. Now that said, in my experience, I'm still able to one-shot plenty of people on turn 1 without needing the upgrade, so it's not essential, but it is very good. And once you've got your essentials covered, it's definitely one of the ones to look at if you want to continue powering them up. But like I've said, for me personally, I've gotten by without needing it, so I can't call it essential. But it is a pretty good damage increase, but again, it's just a single target attack. So for me, this is a clear 3-star. And finally, looking at Star-Lord's passive, it goes from a 50% chance to generate 1 ability energy to a 50% chance to generate 1 to 2 ability energy. What that means is that 50% of the time, when it procs, it has a 50% chance to give out a second ability energy. Now, that amounts to 25% of the time 1 extra ability energy gets generated, which doesn't sound like much, but ability energy is huge. Anytime we're talking about giving out extra ability energy, you have to look at the context because this can be absolutely massive. That 1 extra ability energy, allowing Rocket to ult 1 turn earlier, can make all the difference in terms of who you're able to take out and what abilities you're able to avoid, and it's part of what makes Star-Lord so good is all the energy that he gives out, and because this has the opportunity to proc several times in a row, and it can be so impactful, if you're able to give out quite a bit more energy from this, it can just completely win you the match all by itself. So for me, this is the other clear, absolutely essential upgrade. This is a 4-star. Alright, so we've talked about the Guardians of the Galaxy, but now we're going to look at the other characters that you could rotate in when making the BKT, or the Minn-Erva team. The main 3 that I see are Vision in place of Groot, Thanos in place of Drax, and Minn-Erva in place of Mantis. So we'll start with Vision. So starting off, we'll look at the Vision basic. So adding tier 4s to Vision's basic adds 50% more damage to the primary, 50% more damage to the adjacent targets, and he goes from chaining to 1 additional target to chaining to up to 2 additional targets. And keep in mind, he applies offense down to each target. So this is a terrific value for tier 4s for several reasons. I mean, adding 50% damage is definitely an above average upgrade for a basic anyway, but most importantly, it's the offense down. The fact that Vision gains the ability to offense down another target is just absolutely devastating. The fact that against a 5-man team, Vision can offense down 3 of them with a single basic by himself is so much control. And remember that offense down reduces outgoing damage by 50%. So that 1 extra offense down can save your life and buy time for Minn-Erva or Mantis to heal someone, and it just can be absolutely game changing. So hands down for me, this is a 4-star upgrade. Looking at Vision's special, adding in the tier 4s adds 20% damage to the primary and 20% damage to the adjacents. There's not much to say about this. 20% is not a lot of damage. It's never going to be the difference between killing someone or not killing someone. Not really. So for me, this is a 1-star. Looking at the Vision Ultimate, it adds 30% damage. So 30% damage on an AoE is just a standard upgrade. There's nothing else special about this, so I'm going to rate it exactly as that. It's a standard AoE upgrade, 2-star. Alright, and lastly, we'll look at Vision's passive. Upgrading Vision's passive adds 5% dodge. So, what is there to say? Dodge is not terrible. You know, if you dodge the right ability, it can make a significant difference in the match. However, 1 extra dodge in 20 is not that big of a difference. So, you know, going from 1 in 5 to 1 in 4 dodges, it's not bad. It's not essential. I'm going to give it 2 out of 4 stars. Alright, now we'll look at Thanos. So adding tier 4s to Thanos' basic adds 20% damage, and he goes from an 80% chance to gain counter to a guaranteed gain of counter. So, this is just not that much damage. It's not the worst ever because of the guaranteed counter, but it's not a lot, especially considering his base damage. This is maybe a 2-star. Alright, looking at Thanos' special, he gains 50% damage. So 50% damage is definitely a moderate upgrade, so this isn't the worst upgrade ever. It's not essential, because Thanos really isn't there to do damage, but an extra 50% damage on a single target nuke is just fine, so for me, this is a 3-star. Looking at Thanos' ultimate, it adds 30% damage, however, it's a little bit more useful because this 30% is hitting everyone, which is a standard upgrade. However, he has 100% drain. So all that extra damage against everyone is all being fed back to him as health if he needs it. So for the fact that it double dips a standard extra damage upgrade on an AoE and a lot more healing for himself, for me, this is a 3-star. And finally, looking at Thanos' passive, on death of an enemy, he goes from 75% chance to generate 2 ability energy for self or adjacent cosmic ally to 100% chance to generate 2 ability energy for self or any adjacent cosmic ally. So this is absolutely essential, hands down. Ability energy can change the course of a fight immediately if you get lucky with who gets the ability energy, especially if you have Rocket and Star-Lord on a team with Thanos. This could lead to just back-to-back-to-back Rocket ults, which can be absolutely monumental, especially when capitalizing on Minn-Erva. Just getting as much ability energy flying around as possible is always in your best interest, so there's no two ways about it. You know, whether it's Thanos having the opportunity to get an extra taunt in and save someone who might be low, or ulting an extra time for follow-up AoE and killing a straggler who's low and someone else is taunting, whatever it may be, the extra ability energy can almost always be put to good use, so this is definitely a 4-star. And finally, we're going to take a look at Minn-Erva. So, spoiler alert here, Minn-Erva does not have great upgrades. And for some reason it shocks people. I get asked all the time. People will message me and say, which tier 4 should I upgrade on Minn-Erva? And I tell them, none. And it blows people's minds. But if you actually look at her abilities, it's pretty clear. So, first and foremost, upgrading her basic adds 30% damage. It does also increase the bleed damage by 15%, but it only goes from 170 to 200. It's not a lot at all. It's still a really weak basic. Her base damage is still really low. You're not going to be killing more people because her basic hits harder. I mean, this is a 2-star. It's not great. Alright, looking at the Minn-Erva special, the only thing that changes is the most injured ally gets healed for an additional 2,000 health. Again, this is just not good. 2,000 flat health is not a lot. At this point, with the endgame content where you'd be using this team, your average basic attacks are doing somewhere between 15,000 and 30,000, so the extra 2,000 health is just never going to save anyone. It's just garbage. Do not upgrade this. This is a 1-star. Alright, looking at Minn-Erva's ult, again, it's just a flat heal increase, and it's a flat 1,000 health, so for all the same reasons that the special was terrible, 1,000 health is never going to save anyone. If 1,000 health actually does end up making the difference, there were several other factors that result in you getting lucky and that actually saving someone, but again, pretty much any other tier 4 upgrade would have put you in a better position in the first place, so for that reason and several others, this is a clear 1-star. Don't upgrade this. And finally, looking at Minn-Erva's passive, on ally death, change speed bar. Instead of 20%, it goes up to 25%. So it sounds kind of enticing, but there's a few things to look at here. First off, she's already going to gain 20% speed bar, so really it's just an extra 5% speed bar. and that's almost never going to make the difference. And then secondly, this is only proccing on ally death. Now there are some comps where you'll use a bunch of summons and that might occur more often than not, but even on a team with like Nick Fury and 3 summons constantly dying, that'll amount to a total of 15% speed bar. It's just not that big of a change, and most of the time you either aren't going to have or you don't want ally deaths anyway, so it's just not great. For me, this is a 2-star. There you have it. Those are the upgrades for the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Minn-Erva team. I asked you guys in the comments last time to let me know which team you guys wanted to see next, and so I tallied up what you guys said on that video, and there were actually the exact same number of votes for 2 more teams going into the next video. And the 2 teams that you guys wanted to see after this one were Power Armor and the Wakandans. So in the comments of this video, let me know if you'd rather the next Orange Essentials video be on the Wakandan team or on the Power Armor team, and we'll break it down. Otherwise, shout out to Vet for doing a terrific job editing on this one. Thank you guys for checking it out, and I will see you guys real soon. Peace!